What's up? We got Supergirl Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis on Earth X, Part 1. So this episode starts off on an evil world. Yeah, run by Nine. And totally, then we see the bad guy, then we see a dark green arrow, or as I'm going to call him, Dark Arrow, fighting an evil version of Guardian. Actually, a good version of Guardian, because of course there's a good version of Guardian. And the Dark Arrow kills Guardian. No, not other Earth Guardian, because we. So meanwhile, in Central City, we see it's really weird. We see Barry fighting King Shark while Iris is trying to pester him about the wedding, and he's like, Iris, can we deal with this? Can we deal with this after I'm done fighting King Shark, please? And she's like, hey, we haven't people haven't RSVP'd yet, and he's like, who hasn't RSVP'd? Then we cut to Star City, where we see Oliver and fighting some ninjas. And Felicity's again pestering him, but also pestering him about the wedding. And he's like, Felicity, can't we deal with this after I'm done defeating ninjas? And she's like, dude, it's not Damien Dark. It's just some ninjas. And he's like, Barry and I really want to know if we've RSVP'd to their wedding. And he's like, okay. So then we cut to Legends of Tomorrow, where we see, I'm sorry with all the colors. It has to be next to the representative show. So then we see Legends of Tomorrow, where the Legends are taking out a bad guy in England until an arrow flies by, and he's like, and the guy's like, Robin Hood, and I'm like, nope, it's Sarah Lance. And she's like, not quite, and takes them all out. Or not takes them all out, but they're like, hey, haven't we RSVP'd to Barry and Iris' wedding? And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, we have a wedding to prepare for. So meanwhile, back on Supergirl's Earth, we see Supergirl fighting a Dominator, because they couldn't have any villain. It had to be the Dominator. Like it couldn't be another villain. It had to be a Dominator. So everyone's still weirded out by Monel being back on the team, and she's like, Kara, what's the alien? And she's like, it's not a Dominator, it's just a Dominator. And she's like, these guys are so last year. Because they are, Kara. You defeated them in you defeated Supergirl Season 3, Episode 9. And Arrow. And you defeated them in the crossover last time. In the last crossover. So, of course, they're going to come back. So, meanwhile, back So Monel's like, is Kara okay? And she's like, duh, she's Supergirl. And then Kara's like, Monel just showed up. And she's like, yeah, he was very worried about you. And she's like, he was very worried about you. And she's like, well, it's weird that, so I sent him away and only find out that he's alive and married. Yeah, so she's like, oh yeah, I should remind you about Maggie. And she's like, what's this? And she's like, oh, it's Barry Allen's wedding invitation. She's like, you mean the Flash? And she's like, yeah. Like Alex wouldn't know. So anyway. So she's like, yeah, just go do a dumb way. And she's like, it's not time to go to it's time to just drink away our sorrows in alcohol. And she's like, no. And she's like, what? And she's like, I know I was only joking about you being weight since you can't get weight. And she's like, no, we're not going to sit here and drink away our sorrow. We're going to go, we're going to have fun, and we're going to go to this wedding. So, yeah. So then we cut to the girls of the show. Iris, Caitlin, Kara, and Felicity all having fun. And she's like, hey, why don't you and Oliver get married? She's like, someday when we're not dealing with the whole fact of King James and Black Siren and Oliver having to take care of his son, of his ex-lover who's dead, and yeah. So, yeah. So meanwhile, back on the NAZY world, I don't like saying name. We see the villains getting ready to go to Earth 1. So Barry's getting ready for Barry's getting ready to what to say to Iris. And Oliver's like, hey, I was able to do it, but me and Iris aren't together. Me and Leslie aren't together anymore. So and he's like, yeah. So meanwhile, back with Harry and Cisco finally have figured out a way to make Martin and Jax split up from Firestorm. And they finally figured out a way to do it. They finally figured out a way to do it. And you know what? It'll take out the fire. It's putting the fire out of the Firestorm. She's like, no powers for any of us. And she's like, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, it'll just make the Matrix will think you're connected. The Firestorm Matrix will think you're connected, but you're really not. So yeah. So he's like, I gotta tell my wife about it. So yeah. So Caitlin talks to Martin about Ronnie and about how Ronnie was proud of him and all that. Even though Ronnie is named after even though he has a grandson with Ronnie named after Ronnie Raymond, it's kind of weird. So yeah. So Joe decides to give a toast to Barry and Iris. Oliver decides to ask Felicity to marry him, even though she says no, and she walks off. Martin decides to give Jefferson superpowers, but he only gets the power to stick to things, which doesn't feel like a good shot, you know. And yeah. So meanwhile, Barry's like, Sarah and Alex meet up and told her we drink away their sorrows together. And then they told her we sleep together. So meanwhile, Oliver's like, so he's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, you didn't bring your +1? And she's like, we saved the world a couple of times. Yeah, I've done that too. And yeah, well, he's also married to someone else. And he's like, oh yeah, well, I haven't done that, so sorry about that, Kara. And she's like, hey, Kara, can you do something for me? So meanwhile, back on the wedding day, we see Oliver, we see Barry and Iris sleep together. Sarah and Alex sleep together. Oliver and Felicity sleep apart from each other. And Mick decided to bunk in with Stein. So yeah, so there's this weird scene where Mick decides to sit in front of Stein, singing his husband, and sings like, have we met before? Did you remember when you arrested this guy? Unless Barry erased that from the timeline when he created Flashpoint, wouldn't that thing still happen? Wouldn't he still have done the thing with Snart? He would still arrest him. I have no idea if that thing's still happening or not. So then he's like, lawyers. I don't like lawyers. So he's like, okay, she's a friend of ours. So then Barry gets run into by this girl, and she says a lot of creepy things, like how she likes weddings and about how you wouldn't miss it, and it's really creepy how she says her stuff. And she's like, remember to say I do, and walks away. Creepy girl. She's really creepy. She creeps me out. We don't know who she's played by, Jessica Parker Kennedy, but she creeps me out. The character creeps me out. So yeah, so Barry and Iris finally got married. The guy's like, whoever has vows to say, whoever has anything to say, or for now hold your peace. Then the guy gets disintegrated by a bunch of Nazis and a girl with a red cape, and she said, peace is overrated. So then we see Prometheus, probably not Agent, not this version of Agent Chase. It would be cool if it was this version of Agent Chase, but it's probably not alternate Agent Chase. But we see Prometheus, which is cool because I like Prometheus' suit. So they get into a big fight. Wally's doing fine until he's taken out by Red Zaps. Kara's doing a CGI battle with the evil Nazy Kryptonian, and Joe looks up thinking, well, I've seen weirder stuff than this. He never actually said it, but he's probably thinking it. Because Joe has seen weirder stuff than that. If you come to think about it, Joe has seen weirder stuff than that. He has. So yeah, so Kara defeats her. The Dark Arrow shows up, takes her away. And now the team's left wondering, who are these people? Why do they know them? And why are they here? So they decide to protect their family. Yeah. Then we review who the villains are. The villains show up with a Reverse Flash guy with Reverse Flash, because Reverse Flash is on their team, and then they reveal to be Evil Oliver and Evil Kara. And Reverse Flash gets mad at Evil Oliver for basically waiting to attack, not waiting for his plan to attack. And he's like, we've waited to achieve victory, and these heroes will die. So my problem is, again, they cannot stop recasting Ian Barthon as Tom Cavanaugh as Reverse Flash because they really like him so much, even though he's played a bunch of Reverse Flashes and a bunch of Wells, and now he plays Harry and Reverse Flash at the exact same time. He plays these so many characters that you can't just recast them. It'd be funny if this was Matt Letcher, because it would make sense if it was Matt Letcher's son and Harry, but no, they couldn't do that. They had to get Tom Cavanaugh, because of course they do, because they cannot stick with their gun, because they really like Tom Cavanaugh. That is my problem with the show. It's that when it comes to Reverse Flash's character, like him in season 1 was cool, but now, like nowadays, they won't stop reusing Tom Cavanaugh for Ian Barthon. They have Matt Letcher in the book. They have him in the bag. They could just use him, but no, they keep reusing Tom. I'm sorry, Tom. You're a really good actor, but they don't. But I'd rather see you play Wells than just see you pop up as Reverse Flash. If that was Matt Letcher, who worked with the bad guys, that would be cool. That would be like, wait, that Letcher's here, but no, it's Tom Cavanaugh again. Because, anyway, that doesn't ruin the greatness of this first part. This part was great. I enjoyed it. It had great villains from the Nazy villains and our heroes. So, anyway, I'll see you next time when we review the Arrow portion of Crisis on Earth X Part 2.